Hey everyone, welcome to another hiking video at Sycamore Canyon in Malibu, California. This hike starts on the Scenic Trail in Sycamore Canyon, which is rated as moderate and is 0.7 miles long, but the hike in total is 3.5 miles long and is rated as moderate to difficult due to the inclusion of the Ridge Trail. Parking to reach this trail shouldn't be difficult to get, as there are many spots along the side of PCH if the lot is full at the campground or if you don't want to pay the hourly fee to park there. This hike should take about 1 hour to 1.5 hours at most and features beautiful wide ocean, mountain, and canyon views. To start this hike, you enter the Sycamore Canyon campground from Pacific Coast Highway and then go onto the Fire Road where you'll find the entrance to the Scenic Trail. The entrance to the Ridge Trail can be found after walking 0.7 miles uphill on the Scenic Trail. Even though the main part of this hike is only moderately difficult, I'd recommend coming here on at least a partly cloudy day to avoid the heat of the direct sunlight as you're hiking. Just about after finishing the 0.7 miles of the Scenic Trail, you'll find multiple ocean viewpoints that are only short trails, as well as the entrance to Overlook Fire Road, as well as the Fireline Trail and multiple other trails off of that road, and the entrance to the left to the Ridge Trail. If you do choose to continue to go straight after finishing the Scenic Trail, you'll end up on the Overlook Fire Road, which can be used to loop back down to the campsite or to enter the Inland Fireline Trail. At the end of the Scenic Trail, there's a small overlook area that leads you to some great ocean views, and I'd recommend stopping here before starting the Ridge Trail for a great wide photo opportunity and view of the ocean and highway below. This viewpoint, as with other viewpoints on this trail, will be clearer on a sunny day, but I'd still recommend coming on at least a partly cloudy day. It's also a great place to stop and take a break before starting the Ridge Trail on many of the wooden benches or rocks along this point. After that viewpoint, or if you skip the viewpoint, at the end of the Scenic Trail you will need to go left to start the Ridge Trail, which begins going uphill over a couple of mountain peaks. The Ridge Trail begins here with a sharp uphill over the first of 4 total peaks along the trail. This section before and on the peaks features beautiful wide ocean views as well as canyon views to the left. From this point before the first peak of the Ridge Trail, you get views of the Overlook Fire Road and Scenic Trail below, where I pointed in the clip, and you get amazing wide panoramic ocean views. Shortly after this point, you'll reach the first peak of the Ridge Trail. As you're making your way between the peaks on the Ridge Trail, and especially towards the first peak, the trail does begin to get steep and rocky in some areas. So as you can see, we've gotten to the top of this viewpoint, and if you're willing to deal with the sharp incline here and the steep trail just to this hill here that has a viewpoint, you'll get amazing views of the mountains and the trails, which make great photo opportunities. But the best part is getting this wide, clear view of the ocean and PCH below, along with the mountains. And down there you can see the Malibu sand hill, which that seemed high when you go to the top of it, but as you can see here, it's definitely not as close to as high as this. These are examples of some of the photos that I took from this first peak viewpoint. As you can see ahead too, the trail continues over this small hill, and it loops back around over there on those mountain peaks down back to the campsite, but that trail is insanely steep, so we're not going to be doing that today. Mostly just came to this small section of it for the wide ocean view and photo opportunity. As you're at these viewpoints that feature photo opportunities, especially on a cloudy day, make sure to include the sky and the clouds and the light coming through in some of your shots. Since the views on this trail are so wide and feature the ocean and mountains, it will be best to take photos of these views using a camera that has an ultra-wide mode or ultra-wide lens, but it can be a great photo opportunity with any camera. After taking some photos and videos and enjoying the view at the first peak of the Ridge Trail, I continued along the trail, which is still fairly easy and wide at this point, to the second peak that is slightly higher than the first. As you begin to reach the second peak of the Ridge Trail, it will begin to become rockier as well as steeper and maybe a bit more difficult than the first few parts. So here we are at the second peak, which again gets even wider ocean views, which I didn't even know was possible here. The ocean with the sun reflecting off of it, with the highway next to it, the mountains, it makes for great photo opportunities and amazing views. And there appear to be 2 more peaks on this trail, and we're going to be doing 1 more of them. These are some more examples of photos taken along this portion of the trail. After the second peak of this trail, which has the best views in my opinion, you continue along a short part of the trail to the third peak, which is not the last peak, but is much higher than the second peak. So here we are, almost at the third peak. You're getting some more amazing wide views and photo opportunities, including the ocean. As I said, from this point you can see so much of the ocean that you can see sand under the water. You can even see the currents in the distance of the water. And you get some rock formations on the side of this hill here that will also make for a great photo addition. After completing the third main peak, there is a moderately long flat section of the trail that gradually gets narrower as you come to the fourth main peak. So here we are at the third peak of this trail, and this trail would be mainly for views and photo opportunities, I think, because you get such a wide ocean view and very high elevation, and you can see the currents and everything in the ocean. So if you're planning to do any of these trails at the Sycamore Canyon campground, definitely bring water because there are a lot of steep inclines and many of them will take over an hour to hike, and the weather will be either hot, it may be cold depending on what season and what day you come on. Alright, so we have decided to finish this trail besides the part that goes back down to the campsite because that's been rated as very difficult and it's kind of precarious. But here you can get a perspective of how high you are. You can see the highway down below, you can see the campsite down there, and we're going to be going to the last peak of this trail. And the trail here is pretty wide and mostly downhill, so it shouldn't be that difficult at this point. Although the trail immediately after completing the third peak and coming towards the fourth and last peak appears to be wide, it does get gradually narrower as you reach the fourth and last peak. We didn't completely finish this part of the trail as we didn't come to the top of the fourth peak, but be aware that if you're afraid of heights, I do not recommend this section because there are some sharp drops on either side for most of the trail. Before coming to the last peak of this trail, there are some last open areas along the side that do not have steep drops, which make for good photo opportunities before the trail begins to get narrow and steep. This ending section of the trail also makes for some amazing time-lapse photography opportunities because of the ocean below. As I said, the last portion of the trail before the final peak is very steep and narrow in some areas, and I would not recommend it if you have any fear of heights whatsoever. As you're making your way to the final peak, definitely make sure to look out for some rock formations along the side of the trail that make for amazing photo opportunities against the backdrop of the ocean. This photo is an example of one of those points. It may be safe to continue to the final peak along this trail, but I personally didn't do this because there were some sections where the soil had collapsed as well as the ground looked unstable and the uphill was very steep here, so I didn't want to risk getting hurt or anything around here in case the trail was dangerous or unstable. As I said, after reaching the final peak, the trail continues on a very steep downhill that it seems to be fairly precarious down back into the campsite, but we did not do this due to it being precarious and extremely difficult, and we simply went back around on the Ridge Trail and back to the Scenic Trail and came back down to the Sycamore Canyon campsite. So just for a real perspective of how high this hiking trail really is, if you can see those, you may have seen my video on the photo opportunities along PCH in Southern California. If you look down there at those pinkish and gray colored rocks right at the shore of the ocean, that's where I recorded the last video, and this is how high above it we are. If you don't choose to finish the Ridge Trail and go on down the steep downhill, coming back along the Ridge Trail to the Scenic Trail to get back to the campground should take about the same amount of time as coming to the fourth and final peak. Okay, so after reaching the third peak of this trail, we're beginning to make our way back to the Scenic Trail to come back to the campground. And as you're coming back, be aware that there will be more uphill, so it will be a more difficult hike on the way back. But still, you're going to get some amazing views, some amazing photo opportunities throughout. And if I were to rate this entire hike, I would say that it's moderately difficult. It has amazing views. There is some inclines and declines in the elevation of the trail, but I would not recommend this trail if you have a fear of heights whatsoever, because there are some sharp drops off the sides of the trail at points, as well as some sharp downhill areas, as well as areas where it's just obvious at how high in elevation you really are. So if you want to know exactly how to get to this trail, you're going to need to go into the Sycamore Canyon campsite below at ground level. You're going to want to enter the Fire Road and come up the Scenic Trail, which is 0.7 miles. And after completing the Scenic Trail, you will want to take a left here and go up this series of multiple peaks to reach the trail that we were just on. After exiting the campground, you can see just how high this trail was on the mountain in the distance. So that's the end of this video for now. Thanks for watching, and I'd recommend this hike to anyone looking for a great ocean view opportunity and photo opportunity in the Malibu area who does not have a severe fear of heights.